Thank you, sir. Mr. Jenkins, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Can we turn to the issue of hardware failures at the West Byfleet branch? Can we start by looking at FUJ 308 3737? This is your witness statement of the 8th of October 2010. Can we turn to page 4, please? And at the top of the page, you say, I understand there's a suggestion that the equipment in the branch might be faulty. I am not aware of any fundamental issues, though this is being covered by Mr. Dunks. Specifically in his witness statement, he states that, quote, all the calls are of a routine nature and do not fall outside the normal working parameters of the system or would affect the working order of the counters. By saying that, were you saying that you agreed with him that all of the calls were of a routine nature, that they didn't fall outside the normal working parameters of the system, or they wouldn't affect the working order of the counters?
No, just quoting what he had said.
What was the purpose of quoting him?
I was really referring that to his level, his expertise rather than mine.
What expertise did he have in the malfunctioning of equipment within branches?
Well, he would have been examining the help desk calls. That's really what I meant. I believed that he had an understanding of what were routine calls, and therefore I was believing, if he said that they were of routine nature, I was believing what he said.
What was Mr. Dunk's job?
He was part of the security team.
Had he got any expertise in the functioning of equipment within branches, to your knowledge?
I thought that he was experienced in analysing help desk calls.
Experience in good at reading?
Yes.
Can we turn to some of the help desk calls then, please? Poll 306 1793. Do you recognise these as being the logs from the help desk for the branch?
I recognise them as being that now, yes.
Did you examine them at the time?
No, I did not.
You said in your witness statement, I'm not aware of any fundamental issues, i.e. with equipment in the branch. How were you able to say that you were not aware of any fundamental issues?
Because I'd read Mr. Dunks' witness statement.
And did anyone suggest that that was an appropriate thing to do, to, in answer to a question or a suggestion that there was faulty equipment in the branch, you would read somebody else's witness statement who said they'd read the logs, and therefore you form a qualitative conclusion that there weren't fundamental issues?
No one suggested to me that that was inappropriate.
You just did that yourself?
Yes.
Did it occur to you that in order to give evidence to a court as to whether or not there were fundamental issues with equipment in the branch, you should actually look to see whether there was evidence of fundamental issues with equipment in the branch?
That was outside my area of expertise.
Why didn't you answer the question? I understand there's an issue with, or a suggestion, that the equipment in the branch is faulty, might be faulty. That's outside my area of expertise, full stop.
I was just referring to Mr. Dunks, who I thought had done that sort of analysis.
Yes, but you allied yourself with it, didn't you? By mentioning it, by quoting from it, and saying, I'm not aware of any fundamental issues.
I'd not seen it that way at the time.
Do you see it that way now?
Potentially.
Look at, if we look at some of these help desk records then, please. Can we look at page 37, please, at the bottom? we just go to the bottom of the page. Thank you. I think this is a record of a report on the 2nd of May. Do you see opened and closed? 2nd of May in the middle of the page. That's it. Thank you.
Yes.
And the problem text is critical alert received at, and there's a date and a time. Event description: a fatal error has occurred. A corrupt storage unit was detected on volume %1 with LPM %2, unit type %3, and message store will be shut down abnormally. Can you see that?
I can.
Can you help us as to what that is?
That is sounding like a hardware problem on the disk at that time, but that was out of hours, and it wouldn't have caused any problem. I don't think that would have caused any problem to the branch accounts, because that would mean that Riposte just wouldn't be able to function. So the account would effectively be dead until either the message store was deleted and recreated, or the base unit swapped.
So a corrupt storage unit at the branch being detected, and the message store was going to be shut down abnormally.
Yes.
If we go to the top of page 40, please. And do you see the very entry at the top? Base unit swapped, warning, do not change the mirror disk and PC together. If you're in doubt, contact SMT or HIT. Please can engineer print balance snapshot and contact the SMC to synchronize message store before swapping out the base unit. Can you help us? What does that mean?
Simple answer is I don't know. That looks like some sort of instructions for the engineers to what they need to do.
To print a balance snapshot and then synchronize the message store. Why would that be necessary?
I think it's to do with the case of where there's a single counter branch, where there is only one counter with what's called a mirror disk, a removable hardware drive. And what's supposed to happen in those cases is that the removable drive is supposed to put into the new counter.
This was a multiple counter branch, though.
So therefore, I don't think that's relevant to a branch like West Byfleet, which had more than one counter.
Do you know why it would be recorded on a help desk call log?
No idea.
Is what we've read so far evidence that nothing happened that fell outside the normal working parameters of the system?
I believe so.
Can we look at page 40?
So again, I'm not aware of what was normal. I was relying on Mr. Dunks knowing what was normal.
Did you know how he knew or not knew what was normal?
No, but the fact he was saying that it was normal, I took his word for it.
Okay. If we scroll down the page, please, and look for the entry at... thank you. It looks at 1303 as if an engineer arrived. And then the third entry of 1303, no, just the one above that, please. Engineer swapped ADSL cable. Can you see that?
Yes.
And then if we look, please, at page 41, the same day, can we see a further record of a call, critical NT event? This is under problem text. Riposte error, the server is unavailable. Can you see that?
Yes, I can see that.
And then under the call activity log, new call taken by David Sweetlove, and then the substance of the message again. So it looks like, continuing on the same day, there's still a problem, doesn't there?
Yes, well, it's the same problem, a different one. The other one was to do with a comms cable. This is to do with a problem with the background process.
Are they unrelated?
I don't think so, but I don't know.
Again, would you be able to say whether this is evidence of something falling within or outside the normal working parameters of the system?
From my experience, I wouldn't be able to tell one way or the other.
It seems over the next few pages, I'm not going to read them all in the interest of time, but the base unit was replaced because Mrs. Misra's screen had frozen on an error message which said, please wait whilst the desktop connects to Riposte, and successive reboots had failed to rectify the problem. Would that be the system working within or outside its normal parameters?
Certainly base units did fail occasionally, and therefore I would see that as being a normal sort of occurrence.
But would you want to check data that happened at about that time to see whether it was affected by the failure of the base unit?
I didn't have data for that period. I was focusing my attention on the time that I'd been asked to look at, which was December 2006 to December 2007, and this is before that time.
Do you know why you didn't have data for the period of the indictment, which was about 2.5 years for the theft count?
The post office I know now that the post office had decided on the grounds of costs, but at the time then I just knew that I'd been asked to look at data for that period of 13 months.
But one thing that you would want to do if you were examining these records is correlate the problems that are shown in the help desk to the transaction data to see whether there was any connection between the two.
I realise now that that is something that I should have done. At the time I was not aware that I needed to look at the help desk calls and correlate them against the message store.
In your witness statement you had said we saw, I understand there's a suggestion that equipment in the branch might be faulty. I'm not aware of any fundamental issues. It's being covered by Mr. Dunn. Did it not occur to you, I need, on the one hand, the help desk data, or the logs, and on the other, the underlying data to correlate them? And I've got neither.
I realise that now, but I didn't at the time.
Are you aware of any discussion within Fujitsu as to whether that would have been the appropriate response to the suggestion of faulty hardware on a continuing basis within the West Byfleet branch? You need to do both of those two things.
I'm not aware of any such discussion.
Can we turn to page 45? A few weeks later, this is the 17th of June 2006, page 45. And if we scroll down, 17th of June, new call taken. This is under the call activity log. Thank you. The online services are down. PM has, do you know what that abbreviation means?
No is a simple answer.
It looks like she was being told to reboot. Is that sort of turning on and off again?
Yes.
If this was the same error messages as Mrs. Misra had previously received, would that be evidence of the system working within or outside its normal parameters?
I think it was expected to be normal that you would get occasional hardware failures in branches. I've had no experience of the rate of how often they occurred, and I was happy to rely on the fact that Andy Dunks had said that the hardware failures in this branch were normal.
And if I carried on pointing out reports of hardware failures in the branch going right up to December 2006, including where a base unit replacement was necessary because the counter kept turning itself off in the course of transactions, your answer would be the same. You were relying on Mr. Dunks. Is that right?
I think so, yes.
Did you consider the possibility that, that can come down, thank you, that on any one of the occasions where the engineer was replacing hardware, they may have failed to take necessary steps to synchronise the message store?
I didn't consider that.
That would be problematic if they failed to do that, wouldn't it?
But it would also probably have been very obvious at the time.
On the data that you didn't have and therefore couldn't analyse?
Yes.
So in answer to the question, what did you do to respond to the suggestion that hardware faults at branch were persistent and affected balancing, is that you relied on reading Mr. Dunk's statement?
Yes.
Thank you. Can I turn to investigations into shortfalls at West Byfleet by looking at the transcript? Poll 302-9406. Again, this is the transcript that we looked at earlier. Can we look at page 58, please? At D, thank you, this is Mr. Tapford asking you questions. He asks you, have you, in your analysis of these just under 500,000 transactions, have you seen any sign, even the slightest symptom, of any computer fault? And you say, no, but then I've been doing very sort of high-level, rough analysis on the stuff. But to do any detailed investigation, you need to have some sort of idea about a fault happened at that particular time. That reference to the ARQ, that was a reference to the ARQ data, the 500,000 transactions, wasn't it?
Yes.
I think you knew and you realised that the Post Office had only authorised the extraction of ARQ data for the period of the 1st of December 2006 until the 31st of December 2007, so 13 months.
Yes.
The indictment period, did you understand, was the 29th of June 2005 until the 14th of January 2008 in relation to the theft count, so a period of about 2.5 years.
I think I may have seen that sometime, but as far as I was concerned, the only data I had to analyse was for the limited period. Did you realise I've got data for only about half the relevant period for the theft? That was the data I was given, and that was the data I was asked to look at.
Yes, but did you at the time realise?
And I think I made that clear that was the period that I had. I thought it was well known that was the data that I had to look at, and therefore the only data I could comment on. Did it strike you as incomplete in the sense that it didn't match the period of the theft charge? That was what I'd been asked to look at. You say here, I've been doing very sort of high-level rough analysis on the stuff. To do any detailed investigation, you'd need to have some sort of idea about a fault happened at that particular time. So do I understand this to be what you were saying?
although you say that there would be evidence of faults in the data, you did not conduct any analysis to try and locate such faults in the data because you didn't have a date range to narrow down the search.
The data that I had it wasn't really possible to do that because I was trying to correlate the cash movements against the cash declarations, and they just didn't correlate, and therefore I wasn't able to track down where losses had actually happened to investigate in detail.
So the answer,
and
no.
That's really what I was trying to say there.
Sorry?
And that's what I was trying to say with that answer there.
And so that no but, the but is very important because you're saying I actually haven't been able to do any real investigation because I need to know when the fault is supposed to have occurred so that I can use that information to narrow the search down and look in this 500,000 transactions.
Yeah.
Had Fujitsu developed any sort of knowledge bank about the kind of events or patterns that you could do searches on in order to identify evidence of known faults?
I don't know.
None to your knowledge?
I can't think of any at the moment.
The questioning continues. Have you been given any information at all from Professor McLachlan as to any particular fault that might have been happening at a particular time? Answer, other than calendar square problem, no. Would you agree that that approach really throws the burden onto the defence for coming up with suggestions as to what to look for, and then only then would you be able to search through the 500,000 transactions?
Yes, and I think I'd indicated that in some of the emails that I exchanged with Jarnell Singh earlier in the year.
We need the defendant to identify where the particular fault is before I can look for the particular fault. That's what you were saying?
Yeah. I suppose so, yes.
But Fujitsu did keep Pinnacles, Peaks and Kells, didn't it?
Yes.
Could you not have used those in the indictment period for 2.5 years to find out what other known faults were in play during the relevant time?
I think I did look for whether there were any pinnacles associated with that branch.
Yes, not Pinnacles associated with that branch, any Pinnacles or Peaks or Kells that identified known faults that were in play, which were in evidence during the time that the theft was alleged to have taken place. You could use that as a narrowing tool, couldn't you?
I realise that now. I didn't think of it at the time.
Isn't that a straightforward or an obvious approach, rather than saying it's up to you, defendant, to tell me where to look in my system for faults? I've got a knowledge base which identifies faults. I'll use that to look in the data.
When you put it that way, I realise that now, but that was not the way I was thinking at the time.
That would have given you, even on the limited 13 months that you were given, a clue or ideas as to what to look for in the ARQ data, wouldn't it?
I understand that now.
But what you were saying is that there was too much data to do any detailed investigation. The only thing that's been suggested is calendar square, which they knew about because of Lee Castleton's case. That's the only thing that I've got to go on.
That's what I'm saying, yes.
Those things, the Pinnacles, Peaks and Kells, they would have given you an idea what to look for in the ARQ data, but the defence couldn't do that, could they? Because they didn't have the Pinnacles, Peaks or Kells, did they?
That's true.
Do you know that Professor McLachlan repeatedly asked for disclosure of what he called Fujitsu's records of known faults.
I'm aware that he asked for that, yes.
And that had been repeatedly denied him, that request, hadn't it?
Post Office had decided not to meet that, respond to that request.
So the very tool, if the burden was going to be thrust onto the defence, that might have enabled the defence expert to carry out the task that didn't occur to you, that was denied them as well, wasn't it? By the Post Office.
Yes.
Was there any prohibition or nervousness or ban on revealing the existence of the known error log in legal proceedings that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of. I certainly discussed the existence of it with Professor McLaughlin.
And was that why he was asking for it, do you think?
It could well be. After we had I think it was shortly after a meeting I had with him that he actually requested that sort of information from Post Office.
Did you form a view about the denial of that material to him?
I didn't think that it would actually help him a lot, but I was prepared to sort of, if Post Office had come back and said to give that material for him, then it wasn't something that I would have been concerned about.
Can we go forward in the transcript to page 59, please? Mr. Tapford asked you at A, if a computer problem led to a problem with the actual figures on the accounts, would that problem manifest itself to the staff at the Post Office? And you answer, clearly if there's a problem in the accounts then, and there were losses and things like that showing, I'd expect the staff to be complaining to the help desk to investigate what's gone on. And that might trigger an investigation by ourselves.
That was my understanding of how things were supposed to work. I now realise that the Post Office help desk wasn't actually very good at passing things on when they should have been.
The trouble with the answer, therefore, is that it assumes that the help desk handled calls as they should, rather than batting them off.
Yes, that was the assumption I had.
Can we look at some call records, please? Poll 3061793. Page 22, please. And if we scroll forwards, please, and look at the bottom of the page. A call on the 20th of February 2006 at 10:42. It's opened at 10:42 and closed 2 minutes later. If you look at the text, the caller on the left is Mrs. Misra. Can you, Mrs.
Yes.
It says Mrs. Seamer, but it's
Yes,
Mrs.
yes.
Misra. The problem is recorded as mistress states that showing £6,000 down from balance. Yes?
I see that, yes.
And then text underneath it, call closed. So 2 minutes after the call, after Mrs. Misra says that the system is showing £6,000 down from balance, she's told it's an MBSC issue.
I see that, yes.
And then if we scroll down, please. Uh, 10:45. Can you see that, the next call record?
Yes.
Mrs. Misra again. This one's closed down in 3 minutes. Post mistress states that showing £6,000 down from balance. Advised it's an MBSC issue. The post mistress stated she was talking to the MBSC and got cut off. And then the fuller text in the next box down, call closed. I advised post mistress, I put her through. The postmistress was happy with this. And then scroll down, please. And keep going. 3:40, same day. Call opened and closed within 2 minutes. Seema Misra, the caller. Postmistress states her system is showing different values for certain products. And then if we scroll down, under, thank you, just stop there. Call closed by Matthew Fry. Postmistress states that her system is showing incorrect values. Postmistress transferred. Next day, 21st. Last couple of weeks, they've had problems with Horizon Kit. They're always showing them down in money. Carrying on. Call closed. She's been advised by the NBSC, advised postmistress to follow this. Just stopping there, I'm not going to go through all of these. There's a lot of them. Did you access these call records as part of your work preparing to give evidence in witness statements and then orally in Seema Misra's case?
No, I did not.
Did you therefore not correlate any of this information with the data in the limited period of the 13 months that you had?
No, I did not.
I think from your earlier answers, I took that you didn't know that the help desk was perhaps not as effective as it should have been, that people were, for example, continually rerouted to the NBSC.
Yes. Well, it was NBSC, I think, that was responsible to handle that sort of call, but I now understand that they didn't do it very well.
Does any of this help or hinder us with assessing Mr. Dunk's statement that all calls are of a routine nature and don't fall outside the normal working parameters of the system?
I didn't do that sort of analysis of the calls at the time. I just took his word for what he had actually said as the summary.
Do you think you probably should have looked at it before allying yourself with what Mr. Dunks was saying?
With hindsight, I can see that, yes.
I think once the trial started, that can come down, thank you, and Mr. Dunks was testifying about the calls, you started to make some inquiries then, didn't you?
I did indeed. He referred to one call that had been referred through to SSC, and Anne Chambers had actually examined the data for the branch at a particular time. I think that was sometime in 2006, and I did contact her to ask if she had any more useful information, and I did look at the pinnacle that was associated with that.
Let's just look at that briefly. FUJ 0015 3395. And so this is in the course of the trial.
Yes.
You're emailing Anne Chambers on the 13th of October 2010 at 3:15. And in court today, Andy Dunks was asked about all sorts of help desk calls. One of them looked interesting. And then I think that should read so. So I searched Peak for more info.
Yes.
I think that's the Peak that you attached as a PDF at the top.
I believe so.
Ending in 673.
Yeah.
Do you remember anything about it? MB, I've not been asked to get this info officially, so you're still so you are in the clear still. I'm at
Home, I think
home,
that's supposed to say.
if you want to ring me. Why did the Peak look interesting?
Because it was one that had been raised to do with the discrepancy in the branch that had been investigated by her. So I read, I can't remember now exactly what the Peak said. I think she said that she did a full investigation and couldn't find any problem. But I was just wondering if she had anything to add to that.
You're still in the clear, presumably, or do you mean by that that she was keen not to give evidence again?
I think that's what that's referring to, yes.
And therefore, you haven't been asked to get this officially, so there wasn't a prospect of her being dragged into these proceedings?
Correct, yeah.
The defence didn't have access to the Peaks, did they?
No, they didn't.
And so you had a privileged position in relation to Fujitsu's records?
Yes.
Did you think at the time that that may give the Post Office an unfair advantage over the defence?
I don't think I thought it through at the time, but I understand now why you're asking the question, and yes, I accept that that wasn't right.
That aside, do you think that whatever had piqued your interest in the Peak, you should have discussed it with Professor McLachlan, or at least shown him the document, together with any information that Anne Chambers gave you in response to your request to ring her if she wants?
Again, I realise now that that's what I should have done, but I wasn't aware then that that was something that I needed to do. I'd not been asked to look into this at all. I just happened to have picked up, listening to Andy Dunks' evidence, that there was this software call that had come through, and therefore I thought that I would do a little bit of digging up myself into it. And no one had asked me to do that, so that's what was behind this, to see if it would actually shed any light of what had been going on.
And I think when you came to give evidence, you were actually asked about Mr. Dunk's oral evidence when you were giving evidence.
I can't remember that at the moment.
Let's have a look. Poll 30294006. And at page 7. And if we scroll down, please. At H, you're aware, are you, of the witness statements of Mr. Dunks? Yes, I am. And then this is Mr. Tatford, who provided a rather exhaustive list of all the calls to the helpline. Do any of those calls to the helpline, I don't know if you heard his evidence yesterday. Yes, I did indeed. Did any of what you've read or of what you heard yesterday from Mr. Dunks, did that cause you any concern as to your view that there is no evidence of any computer fault? No, I've not. I haven't got Mr. Dunks' experience in examining call logs and things like that, but I was quite happy with his comment that the level of calls from the branch were typical for other branches. Do you think on reflection that reply obscured more than it revealed?
I didn't at the time. I understand now that maybe that would have been an opportunity to talk about the conversation. Well, I'm not sure whether I spoke to Anne or not, but certainly when I looked at the Peak, there was nothing there to show that there was actually a problem at the time. And I believe the Peak showed that she'd done some examination and not found any faults. So therefore I didn't see the need to mention it in that sort of context.
But the level or the number of calls, whether or not that was typical of other branches, was beside the point, wasn't it?
I thought that what I was saying there was... I'm not quite sure what you were expecting me to say there, because as I say, I was doing as I'd done in my witness statement, saying that I thought that Mr. Dunks knew better how many calls would be typical in a branch such as this. Well,
you say, I don't know what I would have expected you to say, and I'm not going to put words into your mouth, but something like, I know that hardware faults can lead to accounting irregularities. One needs to go through the help desk call records very carefully to look for those hardware irregularities and then cross-compare them to the ARQ data using that as a key to look for errors. I haven't done that. And in any event, I've only got 13 months of data, which is about half the relevant period.
I'd not thought it through in that way, but with hindsight, maybe I should have said something like that.
That would be the complete answer, wouldn't it?
Possibly.
Can we look, please, at FUJ 0015 3390? The 11th of October, which I think is the second day of trial.
First day, I think.
It's the first day of trial.
First day, yeah.
First day of trial, at 7 o'clock at night.
Yes.
You're sending, essentially, is this right, the NT event logs?
Yes.
And that's because of his requests or focus on Calendar Square, is that right?
Yes. I think during the trial we'd actually gone through the event logs on my laptop, and he'd asked me could I send him a copy, so I did so.
You answered some questions about these logs. If we look at those in the trial, as you've just said, poll 3002 9406. At page 67, at C. This is you being asked questions by Mr. Hadrill. Just scroll up a little bit so we can just see the question before. Thank you. So at C, questions are asked about Calendar Square, and lo and behold, you summon up then a third log, and it's called an NT log. Yes? Answer, yes. Which you'd not bothered looking at before. You say, I had looked at them before when I was produced my statement on what happened in Calendar Square back in March. Question, you'd never given Professor McLachlan the benefit of looking at them. Answer, that's true. You're compiling, and you say he hadn't asked for them. Sorry, you say he hadn't asked for them. I'd passed on the information from Calendar Square, etc.
I think that's just an example of me not understanding that I had a responsibility for doing any disclosure.
Aside from that, is it right to say that neither you nor Professor McLachlan had time in the course of the trial to analyse the data for anything other than the signs of the Calendar Square bug?
I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly what we had. I did give him the full NT event logs for the full period that had been provided to me back in February. Back in February, Anne had done an analysis of the NT events and to see whether there were any problems there. And we hadn't seen anything that was startling about from the NT events. And now I was sharing these logs with Professor McLachlan.
You said that the pair of you sat in front of your laptop in the course of the trial.
I believe so, yes.
Was that searching for or analysing the data for signs of the Calendar Square bug?
That was the main reason that we were looking at things then, yes.
But you and he didn't have time to analyse all of the data for any signs of bugs?
No, but he was, as I say, having given him the things, then he was free to look for anything he wanted and come back to me with specific questions. I don't believe that he did so, but I believe that Mr. Hadrill did as part of the dialogue here.
Can we go back to page 58, please, or go forward to page 58? Back to page 58. And just go back down to D. Would you agree this is an important part of your evidence between D and G? It's essentially the core of what you were saying.
Yes, I think so.
The questions have your analysis of just under 500,000 transactions seen any sign, even the slightest symptom of any computer fault? No. But I've been doing a very sort of high-level rough analysis. To do any detailed analysis, you'd have to have some sort of idea about a fault that happened at that particular time. And then have you been given any information from Professor McLachlan about a particular fault? And you say other than Calendar Square, no. Do you agree that a complete answer would have included the following? However, Professor McLachlan hasn't been provided with all of the records that are available to me.
I wasn't aware that I needed to say that, and by then he had the information. But as I say, I didn't know that he needed. I didn't know that he hadn't got it until the Monday.
A complete answer would be he has asked for but has not been given Fujitsu's records of known errors.
I didn't know that I needed to say that. I thought he could have said that himself if he thought it was important.
And that it's possible that if he or I or both of us had examined the records for all known faults operative in the 2.5 years of the alleged theft, we would have had a better idea what to look for in the 500,000 transactions.
I understand that now. I hadn't at the time.
The testimony continues by Mr. Tatford asking, you know, and in relation to computer problems, you told us at the beginning of your evidence that a computer problem displays symptoms, and you say, in my experience, yes. Would a computer problem on the Horizon system display symptoms for the people working in the office, not necessarily for the people working in the post office, but if there were investigations carried on, there would be symptoms over the page in the logs. And if a computer problem with the actual figures on the accounts, would that problem manifest itself to the staff at the post office? Answer, clearly if there's a problem in the accounts and there were losses and things like that showing, I'd expect the staff to be complaining to the help desk to investigate what's going on, and that might trigger an investigation by ourselves. Do you accept that a complete answer would have included Mrs. Misra, I understand, did call the help desk about shortfalls in her accounts?
I don't think at that stage I was. Yes, I probably would have heard Mr. Dunk saying that, but I didn't think that I would have needed to have said that.
And I've investigated an investigation by a member of the SSE staff. And she, Anne Chambers, decided there was no sign of a system problem, and so the call wasn't taken any further at that stage. Ought you have to disclose that?
Looking at that now, maybe, but at the time it didn't occur to me that that was relevant.
A complete answer would be Professor McLachlan and I haven't been able to check whether that investigation by Anne Chambers was adequate, because the Horizon data that we've got begins in December 2006, and therefore it doesn't cover the period of those calls in February 2006.
Again, I understand that now, but I didn't at the time.
A complete answer would be I haven't examined the call logs themselves, but even on what I know from Andrew Dunk's evidence, there were numerous calls regarding hardware failures, which I know from my experience can lead to accounting irregularities.
Again, I understand that now, but I didn't think of it at the time.
And a complete answer would be I've given a couple of days ago Professor McLachlan the NT event log, which might help about this possibility, but he's only had it since the first day of the trial. I've not myself looked at it for any other signs other than the Calendar Square bug.
I think I had looked at the end events for anything else that was unusual back in February.
Okay, what do you mean by unusual?
There are some events that you get sort of on a fairly regular basis, so I was looking for ones that I could see that would have caused a problem.
Overall, were you untroubled by and happy with the evidence that you've given at trial?
At the time I was. I clearly appreciate now that it wasn't as good as it should have been, but at the time I felt happy with it.
Can we look at FUJ 0022 5196? Look at the second email on the page from you on the 22nd of October. Subject, court told postmistress had her fingers in the till. Penny, I did a Google search last night and found this from last week. And it's an article in Surrey Online, essentially getsurrey.co.uk.
The reason I was interested in that was because it was referring to me as Professor Jenkins rather than Mr. Jenkins, and that was the reason that I was expressing an interest in there. It was nothing to do with the actual trial as such. It was the fact that I had magically acquired this title of Professor in the article as obviously a typo.
You say they don't seem to have updated it yet to add in the guilty verdict, and looks like I've acquired a new title.
Which is what that last comment was about.
And then if we scroll up, nice one, Gareth. Looks like you now have a sideline of resident expert witness in future post office fraud cases, which is indeed the case, wasn't it? You did thereafter have a sideline as resident expert witness.
I did in a few cases.
Did you subsequently pass this on to anyone else that you had?
I probably sent it home so that my wife could see the article. And again, the reason for that was to do with the fact that I've been referred to as a professor.
Thank you. That can come down. As following your evidence in the Seaman Misra case and the guilty verdict, you were asked to provide a series of generic witness statements, weren't you?
This was about a couple of years later, yes.
Yes, in October 2012.
Yes.
Can we look, please, at poll 309 6978? This is from Mr. Singh to you, copied to others. Dear Mr. Jenkins, welcome from your annual leave. And I'm going to read this as I usually do in exactly how it's written. And your assistant's advice in the past prosecution cases, and I understand you are assisting my colleagues at present. I need your urgent assist. Judge has this morning ordered the prosecution to have the following report ready to be served within 7 days. On advise, Post Office Limited have appointed one of their investigators, Helen Rose, as disclosure officer dealing with Horizon challenges. She's prepared a document stroke spreadsheet detailing all such cases, past and present, approximately 20 in total, although none thus far successfully argued in court. Post Office Limited have been advised to obtain an expert's report from Fujitsu UK, the Horizon system developers, confirming the system is robust. Post Office Limited maintain the system is robust, but in the light of adverse publicity, from legal viewpoint, is that defence should be given opportunity to test the system, should they still wish to do so on consideration of our report. You'll need to consider disclosure officers' document spreadsheet, see attachment, and need to address in your report the following issues. one, a description of the Horizon system in layman's terms so that a jury can understand what it is and what it does, a declaration that it has yet to be attacked successfully, a summary of the basic attacks made on the system, concentrating on any expert reports served in past cases. If there are none, then state that no expert has yet been found by any defence team, civil or criminal, to attack the system. At the moment, there seems to be little more than gripping by defendants that the system must be at fault without saying how. For plainly, like all accounting systems, there is room for human error, keying in wrong amounts, etc. Are you able to state that innocent human error is unlikely to produce the types of discrepancies of many thousands of pounds over many months? If you require any further information or wish to discuss, please do not hesitate to contact me. As far as you're concerned, is this essentially the origin of the request for the generic witness statement?
Yes, it is.
And you'll see from the top of the page that this was sent to you on the 1st of October 2012, and you ended up signing the generic witness statement on the 5th of October 2012.
Yes.
So in a relatively short period of time, and the message says that this was urgent.
Yes.
The request was framed in a way that the generic witness statement, as perhaps is obvious from its title, was not going to address the specifics of any particular case.
Yes.
Did you form a view at the time as to the adequacy of the instructions that you were being given here?
Not really. It was, I suppose the best way to describe it, it was a typical garbled email from Jarnail Singh.
Given that it was a typical garbled email from Jarnail Singh, didn't that cause you concern?
I tried to make the best sense of it that I could.
Can we look at your reply, please? Poll 309 6983. A little later that day, hold on, can we just go back, please, to poll 309 6978? Yes, that was at 11:04 in the morning. Let's go back to poll 309 6983. Your reply at 2:10, you say here at the two existing reports, I mentioned, it looks like it may have been catching.
Yes, sorry. Typing's not one of my strong points.
I mentioned regarding Horizon and Horizon Online integrity, I'll try and produce a further short report addressing your specific points below in the next few days. Hopefully that will cover off your requirements. And so you were sending back the Horizon data integrity reports about Legacy Horizon and Horizon Online that we looked at yesterday.
Yes.
And why were you sending those back as the answer to his question, essentially, or part of the answer?
Because I thought they were part of the answer to his question. And they would give him something to be going on with whilst I tried to frame a report addressing the specifics that he raised.
Can we look at your third witness statement, please? At paragraph 541. At page 186. You say I provided my 2 data integrity reports to Mr. Singh because I thought they were a good starting point for the purposes of describing Legacy Horizon and Horizon Online and the mechanics of their respective audit trails. As I explained in my second statement of the inquiry, these reports were not a survey of bugs or other issues which had affected Horizon and had not been prepared for that purpose.
Yes.
Mr. Singh had asked you to prepare a witness statement, essentially, that said, amongst other things, that the Horizon system was robust, hadn't he?
I can't remember exactly what he was saying, but I thought this was a good start in terms of trying to address the robustness of Horizon, yes.
If we just go back, it might not have been a witness statement, I just want to check that.
He was asking for a report, I think.
A
There
report.
was a report I produced, which later got turned into a witness statement.
Okay, so he was asking for a report that addressed, amongst other things, to confirm that the system was robust.
So the next day, I think I did produce a Word document in the form of a report, which covered what I thought was the scope of what he was asking.
Confused as to the request might have been, Mr. Singh's request might have been, why didn't you write back and say, no, I can't just provide a generic witness statement that's to be used in support of a prosecution. I can only look at branch-specific data to examine whether there's evidence of a specific problem at a specific branch.
I think I had sought guidance from my colleagues within Fujitsu as to how I should address Mr. Singh's request.
Your approach in the past was it's all about the branch, it's not about the system in general.
Yes.
Why wasn't that your reply to him immediately? I can't give you a genericized statement. You need to be looking at individual data, which is branch specific.
I'd not thought of it that way. I thought I was just providing a high-level overview of how Horizon was working in general.
Thank you. If we can stop there and take the afternoon break until 3:15, please.
Have you had a sufficient break, Mr. Jenkins?
I think so. I'd like to just get the day over with, please.
Right, fine.
I'm aiming to finish by 4:00.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can we look at your third witness statement, please, at page 184? You're referring to Mr. Singh's email, the one that we looked at before the break, and you say it didn't mention any specific prosecution, name any sub-postmaster defendant, or provide any information about any prosecution that my statement was required for. I understood that what Post Office wanted was a generic statement that didn't go into the specifics of any case and that responded to the 4 issues Mr. Singh had set out in his mail.
Yes.
And then you say in 535, Mr. Singh's email described and attached 2 documents, and then you give the references, the second of which was an Excel spreadsheet listing a number of previous prosecutions. That's the one ending in 468.
Yes.
Ending in 089.
Yes.
648 was a Word document describing 5 of those prosecutions. These 5 prosecutions, including 2 which I knew about, Rinkfield and West Byfleet. I didn't know about any of the others at the time. I'm not going to take you to the underlying documents, to the Excel, but the spreadsheet had 25 or so branches listed in it where there'd been a prosecution and Horizon issues had been raised. On that list, Huey Thomas's branch was not listed.
I can't remember, I'm sorry.
Would you have gone through that list?
I would have skimmed through looking for ones that I recognised.
And
And I think I recognised about 3 or 4 of them, something like that. I think I listed them in the first draft of my report, the ones
Yes.
that I did recognise.
so you didn't see that the list was incomplete because it didn't list Huey Thomas's branch in Wales?
I took it at face value.
I see. And therefore, there was nothing triggered in you that this list that the Post Office are providing me with doesn't provide a complete picture of all prosecutions in which horizon integrity have been raised?
No, it was presented to me as a list or like that, so I took it on face value and just didn't consider it in that much detail.
Okay, and if we go down the page to 537, you say, whilst I understood that Mr. Singh wanted a generic report that did not address the specifics of any given case and that responded to the 4 issues he'd identified, I was concerned that I did not know exactly how to approach this task. I think that's a reference to that you made earlier in your evidence before the break,
Yes.
when you said yes, and I went off to the Fujitsu lawyers.
Yes, actually, looking at this, it wasn't the lawyers at this point, but it was certainly
Managers.
managers and things, yes.
You say that's why at 11:52 I emailed Peter Thompson, Head of Customer Services, Howard Pritchard, Head of Security, and Turner, Development Manager and my boss, copying Pete Newsom and James Davidson, saying help please and seeking urgent guidance. Can we look please at that, FUJ 0015 6645? Thank you. This is the email that you're referring to.
Yes.
So John L. Singh sent his email with the 4 requests in it, and you say, help please. I've looked through the attachment on John L. Singh's email, and it isn't at all clear exactly what he wants. I suspect he wants a further report explaining why horizon integrity is okay. I had hoped that somebody would have sent him the report I produced for Dave Smith 3 years ago whilst I was on leave. However, before I contact John L., I need some guidance as to how this fits into my priorities. Should I drop everything and concentrate on keeping John L. happy, one extreme, or should I wait for a change proposal?
Yes, because I could see that this could involve quite a bit of my work and therefore it needed to be paid for by Post Office.
So a change proposal, i.e. a formal mechanism raising this work,
Yes.
to be raised and processed before I start, the other extreme, or more likely some in-between course. As a matter of courtesy, I'd like to get some response to John L. today, at least indicating what we, brackets I, propose to do. I'd appreciate some urgent guidance. Until I get some, I'll do nothing further on this other than send a holding email to John L. around 5 o'clock if I've heard nothing by then. So your concern appears to be to secure management sign-off as to where this sits within your day-to-day priorities,
Yes.
rather than concern with complying with the substance of the request that was made to you.
At that stage, it was really a case of, yes, well, is this something I should be doing urgently or not?
You don't
Or
question,
should I be doing it all even?
you don't question in this, where you're seeking guidance, the appropriateness of the requests that are being made to you.
I'd not thought of that, but clearly it was open for my management to say that it was inappropriate.
Does that reflect the fact that you didn't see the task as fundamentally inappropriate, namely providing a generic witness statement that wasn't branch specific and might be deployed without any reference to an analysis of underlying data?
I've now realised that was totally inappropriate, but I didn't at the time.
And that's why we don't see you raising
Yeah.
that in this email, is that right?
Yes, I was assuming that he knew what he was doing and was asking me to do something that was appropriate.
We saw at I think 3:10 that day, you sent over the 2 Horizon Integrity reports.
Yes.
Does that mean that that was essentially the holding response that you are referring to in the last para here?
It could be. I can't remember exactly the sequence of what happened at that time, but that was clearly a sort of holding response.
What assistance, if any, did your managers provide you?
I can't remember. I may have had a conversation with one of them or something in the meantime to agree that that was something that should be done. I just can't remember the details.
What about more generally the plea for help that you were making in this? I don't think we've got a...
I don't think that I've seen an email responding to that, but I think later on some of the Fujitsu lawyers got involved in the report that I was drafting over the next couple of days, but I can't remember the exact details of that.
Can we go forward in your witness statement, please, to page 187? Third witness statement, page 187. And paragraph 545. You say, I understand that the question is being asked in this inquiry of why I didn't, in my draft report, refer to bugs, errors and defects which had affected Horizon. Quite simply, I didn't think Post Office wanted a report which did anything apart from addressing the 4 issues Mr. Singh had asked me to address. In terms of Mr. Singh's general reference to wanting a report, quote, confirming the system is robust, my draft report referred to the components of Horizon that ensured that the writing and storage of data had integrity. My belief was that if and when there were problems in the system, that would be detectable and leave traces, and we would pick those up in any specific case. My view, I think this was the common understanding in Fujitsu, was that there would be problems, there always are, but they were spottable, and there were mechanisms to spot and fix them, and all of these components made the overall system robust. If that was your state of mind, if that was your appreciation, did you take any steps to check that all bugs were being picked up, handled and fixed?
Not at that particular time, no, but I thought that the processes we had in place were doing that sort of thing, and I still believe that they did.
You don't reply to Mr. Singh by saying, look, the system plainly has bugs, but we hope that the system we have in place works. It doesn't work 100% of the time, or at least I can't say it does. I can't say anything more than that, i.e. that's how the system's designed to work. If I need to check underlying raw data to see whether or not there is any evidence of a bug, known or unknown, impacting on the data.
I didn't think I needed to make a response along those lines, though I clearly understand with hindsight that perhaps I should have done.
If we go forward to paragraph 548, please, which is over the page. You say it appears there was legal oversight of the provision of my report at Fujitsu. No one from Post Office or Fujitsu suggested that my report needed to detail any bugs, errors or defects which had arisen in Legacy Horizon or Horizon Online. David Jones, that's the lawyer,
yes,
had been involved in Mrs. Misra's case, in which he had passed on to Post Office my raising the Craig Park issue, which lawyers in Fujitsu and Post Office knew about anyway. The Calendar Square bug had featured in Mr. Castleclan's case and Mrs. Misra's case. Mr. Singh was well aware that my approach in Mrs. Misra's case was that the underlying data needed to be considered for any evidence of a system issue at a particular branch. I now know that Post Office's criminal law team were aware of the receipts and payments mismatch bug. Plainly, there was a far greater exchange of information between Fujitsu and Post Office about the problems that arose from time to time in Horizon than this. But even in terms of just those individuals dealing with this request for a report, there was clearly knowledge within Post Office of a number of Horizon-related problems. No one suggested that these should be included in the report that Post Office had asked me to produce. You say no one suggested this should be included in the report.
Yes.
Forgive me whilst I take a lozenge.
Yeah.
This report was going to form the basis of a witness statement that you were in due course to sign.
I don't think I knew that at this time.
By the time that you signed the witness statement, you knew that the report that you drafted formed the basis of that witness statement.
Yes.
That witness statement was going to be backed by a statement of truth.
And I believe that the report, as it was written, was true.
Did you not know that the picture was more complex than was presented in the final draft of your October the 5th generic statement?
I'm not sure what you mean by more complex.
Well, for example, you didn't include a caveat linking your limited information on any individual case, or saying that Horizon was not fault-free.
I accept that I did not include those caveats. I didn't think I needed to at the time.
This tends to suggest, this paragraph, that you thought perhaps that it was the responsibility of others to tell you what qualifications you needed to include in your report and then witness statement. Is that what you're intending to say here?
I think I would. I was seeking guidance. I didn't receive any guidance to do other than that which I did. And therefore, I think there were a number of opportunities where others who are more knowledgeable of these things than me to actually suggest that I added further things into there, and they didn't suggest that to me.
Thank you. Now, I think it's right that you prepared a draft report that can come down on the 2nd of October 2012, and then a witness statement on the 5th of October 2012. And in between those two events, there had been some revisions. One of those revisions was that somebody had inserted the words, "I understand that my role is to assist the court," in the opening paragraph of the witness statement.
Correct.
Those words weren't in the draft report that you had submitted originally back on the 2nd of October.
Correct.
But do you know who inserted them?
I think I've recently understood that it was one of the lawyers in Cartwright King, but I'm not 100% certain of that.
Did you ask a question about why somebody had written something into your witness statement that said, "I understand my role is to assist the court"?
No, it didn't seem to. It didn't seem to contradict anything that I'd said in the report, so I thought it was just something that needed to be included in it as a legal document.
You, I think, had had some concerns about both post offices and Fujitsu's management of the prosecution cases and your requirement to give input into them.
I'm not quite sure.
Taking a step back, by October 2012, you said that their management of the case was chaotic, the post office.
And certainly the subsequent events over the next few months with this use of the generic statements was even more chaotic, yes.
By this time, did that concern about their management of the cases trigger anything in you in thinking, why is somebody adding, "I understand my role is to assist the court"?
No, it didn't. I just assumed everyone, that others knew what they were doing.
Did you ask yourself, are there any legal reasons for including this?
I assumed that the reason it had been added in was it needed to be done, and I couldn't see any harm in it being included in that.
If we can go back to your witness statement, please. page 194. Paragraph 571, you're dealing with the last paragraph of your signed witness statement of the 5th of October 2012, the generic witness statement. And you say the concluding paragraph of my witness statement addressed the fourth and final issue. And that's the fourth and final issue in Jarnail Singh's email of the 1st of October. To recap, Mr. Singh had asked me to confirm that innocent human error was unlikely to produce large discrepancies over a number of months. The wording I used in response was, quote, "In summary, I would conclude by saying that I fully believe that Horizon will accurately record all data that is submitted to it and correctly account for it. However, it cannot compensate for any data that's incorrectly input into it as a result of human error, lack of training or fraud, and nor can any other system." By this, were you seeking to imply that Horizon was both robust and infallible?
I certainly wasn't saying it was infallible.
Were you seeking to imply that it was robust?
I was saying that that it would accurately record what had happened, and I believe that it did.
You knew, I think, that the Post Office wanted this statement, to use this statement, to rely on it to show that Horizon was robust. That had been what was said in Mr. Singh's email to you.
I can't remember the exact wordings, but I'll take your word for it.
What did you think, then, the purpose of your generic statement was? What was it going to be used for?
To show that you could rely on the data that was found in the audit trail from Horizon.
That limited purpose?
And that's what I was trying to say here, yes. And the description in the statement is primarily about describing how the audit trail works and how it was actually recording the data that had been input into the system and how it was stored into the audit servers and retrieved for ARQ data.
What this doesn't do is look at the other side of the coin and look at instances where Horizon doesn't accurately record all data because of bugs, errors and defects in the system, does it?
I'm not aware of bugs, errors and defects that stop it recording things other than the hardware issues that we spoke about this morning, and that was already being referred to in the integrity paper that was associated with this statement.
Can I turn briefly to look at the use of the generic statement? Poll 30097061. And if we scroll down, please. I should give you the context by looking still further down. The case of Patel. Hi, Gareth. This is from Sharon Jennings in the Post Office. This is the one you supplied at the expert report and witness statement for the week before last. Apologies for not explaining that properly in the previous email. It was a blanket email for all witnesses. It's unclear at this stage who will be required as a witness and which evidence will be accepted without the need for attendance. I just thought if I let everyone know, they can pencil it in, and then I can let you know nearer the time. And then scroll up.
Well, in fact, if you go further down there, then what had happened was I'd had this email out of the blue asking me to reserve some diaries for a court date for something I'd never heard of before. And
Yes.
That's what I was flagging up here at this point.
Let's look at that then, if you want to look at it. I think you've accurately summarised it. Keep going. There's an email from Miss Jennings saying Patel is up for trial at Peterborough Crown Court. Yes?
Yes.
And then you reply further up saying I don't know anything I'm not aware of this case. Yes?
Yeah.
Then she gives that explanation. This is the one you supplied the
Yes.
expert report for, etc.
Yeah.
And then further up, please, which is where I want to look here. Your reply, thanks for the clarification. I had not understood that related to a specific case. That related to a specific case,
By that I meant the witness statement.
i.e. the generic
The
witness
generic
statement.
witness statement, yes.
So she was saying you supplied a witness statement for the case of Patel, and you're saying, well, hold on, I'd understood that my generic witness statement was not in relation to a specific case.
Correct, that was my understanding.
Continuing, I thought that was a general statement. If I'm required to go to court for that, I think I need to have some more background on the specific case and exactly what is required. I appreciate that is not covered by my statement, but if I need to be an expert witness, I need to understand what is happening. By this time, had you realised that you were performing the function of an expert witness?
Yes, but without understanding what that really meant.
What did you understand it to mean?
Someone who had good knowledge of how Horizon operated.
This is a slightly different formulation from what we've seen before, where you're referring to yourself as an expert witness, isn't it?
Yeah, because, well, I knew people had been referring to me as an expert witness in the past, and I now realise that I just didn't know what an expert witness actually meant, but I assumed that the function I performed in the past was what was required of me again.
By this time, were you aware that an expert witness had a special status in legal proceedings?
I was aware that there were some differences, but I didn't sort of understand all the legal niceties involved in such things.
What was the extent of your understanding of the some differences?
Well, for example, I think I was aware that I was allowed to sit into court and listen to other witnesses, which I understand a witness of fact was not allowed to do.
From whom did you gain that understanding?
Because I was asked to do so during Mrs. Misra's trial.
And who explained that the reason you were allowed to sit in was
I can't remember.
because you were being treated as an expert witness?
Yes, but that was all I knew that was made it any different from anyone else. But I didn't really understand the legal niceties of it, I'm afraid.
Who explained that to you?
I can't remember. Possibly Mr. Tatford, I'm not sure, but or it could be Mr. Longman. I don't know. I don't think John L. Singh was actually around very much during the trial.
By this time, 19th of October, did you understand that an expert witness had particular responsibilities?
No, I did not.
Did you draw a link between describing yourself as an expert witness and the line that had been inserted in your generic witness statement that you had a duty to the court?
No, I didn't realise there was any link between them. I do now, but I didn't then.
Did you, when the line was inserted in your witness statement, with you saying to the defence and to the court that you understood that you owed a duty to the court, ask anyone, what duty do I owe to the court?
I just assumed it meant to tell the truth, which is what I'd do anyway.
Did you question why somebody was inserting something into your witness statement that was very obvious to you already?
No, I didn't.
Did you ever ask, what are these duties that I owe?
No, I did not.
If you were completely oblivious to the status and responsibilities of an expert witness, why were you describing yourself as one?
Because that's what other people were describing me as.
In Mrs. Misra's trial, were you present throughout the whole time?
No, and in particular, I was only present during the first week. I'd never heard the evidence that she gave, and the first time I saw that was about 2 or 3 years ago when preparing for
and so it follows from that you weren't present when the judge summed up to the jury.
No, because that was the second week. I'd
Yeah.
gone home after...
That's all right. That's all right.
You were expressing some concern in this chain that your generic report was being used, was being deployed in a specific case.
Yes.
Can we turn forward, please, to poll 3097137? Can we scroll down, please? And again, please. An email from Rachel Panther to you under the heading Horizon Expert Report. As you all may already be aware, your expert report detailing the reliability of the Horizon system. First of all, did you understand that you had produced an expert report?
I had produced a report which then got converted into a generic witness statement.
Did you understand that it was the statement of somebody who was being treated as an expert witness? Or did you still regard yourself as a witness of fact? Or didn't you make the distinction at all?
I didn't make the distinction. I'd say the first time I became aware of the duties of an expert witness was in about 2020, 2021, something like that.
Your expert report detailing the reliability of the Horizon system, did you understand that the document that you produced was a document which detailed the reliability of the Horizon system?
I took that as a description of the document I produced, which I thought was more of a description of the reliability of the audit data that came out of the Horizon system. But I didn't quibble about the difference between those two.
She continues, has been served as evidence in a number of post office cases that are at various stages of the court process, most of which are listed for trial in the early part of next year. It should be noted that most, if not all, cases raising the Horizon system as an issue have been unable, not willing to particularise what specific issues they have with the system and how that shapes the nature of their defence. As we already have your detailed report, I'd like to serve it in each case below, and then 6 cases are set out. Your expert report has already been served in the Nemesh Patel case. I'd like to serve your report in the remaining cases and have attached a case summary of each listed above so that you may familiarise yourself with the facts of each case. Please could you read the case summaries attached and send 5 original signed and dated copies of your report to me as soon as possible. Did you understand what you were being asked to do here?
Not really. I think I was just being asked to actually send her 5 copies or signed copies of the statement, and as I responded, saying, well, why can't you use the one you've already got?
This was a month or so after your pushback on the use of the generic statement in a single case, saying that you hadn't seen the underlying data. You're now being told that it's being used in 6 cases. In fact, it had already been served in one.
I think that one was the one
same
that I was already aware of, yes.
What was your reaction? Did you not think, well, hold on, I'm similarly unhappy that my generic statement is being deployed in individual cases when I've seen none of the underlying data in any of those cases?
I think it was, I sort of took that as read, having already made that point, admittedly, to someone else, and the pushback was really, well, why don't you just get on with it? You've already got the signed statement. Why do I need to be involved? Because I've been told before that I didn't need to be involved. And I also sought some guidance from management as to the fact that this had been sprung on me out of the blue.
Can we scroll up, please? We see your reply. Can't you use the report I've already sent you? There's no mention of the case on the report. And by that, are you meaning you could just serve it times 6?
Yes.
Because it's not a case-specific report. There's no defendant name in it.
Correct.
Then you say you need to be addressing such requests through post office rather than to myself. and there's no commercial cover in place, i.e. that there isn't any allocated spend to this.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And I then copied the email to the people who should have been involved in sorting out those commercial niceties and so on.
Penny Thomason and James Davidson.
Yes, and also Jane Owen, who I knew was Penny's counterpart in Post Office.
So at this point, what was your state of mind? I've produced this expert report, as it's described, which is generic. I've been told that it's been deployed in the Patel case. I've pushed back against that, saying I've seen none of the underlying data. And then I'm told it's being deployed in 5 other cases. Can I provide some more copies of it?
I was even more confused because it implied that it had already been employed in an unspecified number of cases. So in which case, why was I being asked to sign it 5 times? So I was just generally confused.
What about the more fundamental issue that you'd raised beforehand about the appropriateness of using a generic statement without looking at underlying data?
I thought I'd already made that point and didn't feel the need to repeat it at this point.
Thank you. That's all I want to ask you about the use of the generic statement. Just one last topic before we conclude my questions, and it concerns the decision not to continue to use you as a witness in support of post office prosecutions.
Okay.
Can you recall what you were told about that?
I can't remember the exact details. I've covered it in my witness statement, but basically it was along the lines I was told that I couldn't be used anymore for some sort of legal reasons, and it was never explained to me what those legal reasons were. I now understand, I think, a bit more of the background, but at the time, but I didn't find that out until 2020, 2021.
Were there any, I'm going to come to the email in a moment, were there any conversations with you explaining why the post office, sorry, that document can come down, explaining why the post office didn't want to use you as an expert witness in legal proceedings against sub-postmasters in the future?
Not that I can remember other than the email, which I suspect is the one you're about to show me.
Yeah. Can we look then at the email, FUJ 0015 6923? And look at the email at the bottom of the page. We're a year and a bit on now. December 2013.
I think there had been some emails between myself and Rachel Panther over the intervening months saying, where are we in terms of, are there any more cases I need to worry about in diary management? And I'd effectively been fobbed off on those.
Exactly so.
Yeah. But there was nothing to say, we can't use you, because it was just a case of nothing for you to do.
I haven't gone to those because they don't say anything of substance as to whether or not you're to be used, and if not, why not? 3rd of December 2013. James Davidson to a wide group of people, including you.
Yes.
With the subject Horizon Integrity Challenges. Folks, Mike, Pete and myself, just decoding who...
I'm assuming that's
is.
Michael Harvey.
And Pete Newsom.
Pete Newsom, I would think, yes, as opposed to Peter Thompson.
And remind us, Michael Harvey...
He was a lawyer. Well, I think he was a commercial manager, but I believe he was also a qualified lawyer. But I think his role at this point was as a commercial manager.
And Pete Newsom?
He was a liaison between Fujitsu and Post Office, and particularly involved with the prosecution side of things.
Met with Post Office lawyers last Friday to discuss the proposal Post Office have come forward with for an independent external expert review of the integrity of the Horizon system. In essence, the problem that Post Office have is that they are being given legal advice that the, quote, rules of evidence, end quote, mean that submissions which in the past have sufficed to support prosecutions, namely the input from Gareth Jenkins, cannot be used in future prosecutions. They're therefore seeking the view of an external expert who can warrant that the data they're basing prosecutions upon has integrity. In the meeting, we were successful in moving the discussion away from a full system review, which would not achieve their aims and is unworkable in practice, and to focus it on what we're calling the core audit process. This scope is aligned to the audit we were intending to do in 2012 and for which we had already agreed terms of reference with KPMG. That was the paper for which you had written some terms of reference for.
Indeed.
The attached slides describe the core audit process and set out a terms of reference for an audit that's achievable and that we could support. We've made it clear to Post Office that whilst we'll cooperate and provide access to our experts in a controlled way, we reserve the right to challenge any findings of an external expert. The support will also be chargeable and a CT, what's that?
Commercial terms, so it's basically a contract between Fujitsu and the Post Office.
Is being drafted by myself in parallel. All content has been reviewed by Mike, Pete, Gareth. And scroll down. Can you review the terms of reference? I'm not going to read the rest of it.
Yeah.
The first paragraph of that letter, that email rather, explains that the problem that the Post Office is that they are being given legal advice that the rules of evidence mean that the input from you cannot be used in future prosecutions.
And I took it at face value as that, and that I thought that meant, okay, I was off the hook and I didn't need to get involved in any more legal proceedings.
And were you content with that?
Oh, yes.
You were happy not to be involved?
Yes, because I prefer to be working on my day job, which was designing changes to the system rather than being involved in prosecutions.
Was that the extent of what you were told as to why you were no longer the Post Office's expert witness of choice in their prosecutions?
As far as I can remember, yes.
Did they ever tell you about a legal advice that they had received which concluded in broad terms that you had broken your duties to the court and had given evidence which was unreliable and therefore you could not be relied on for those reasons?
No, I didn't understand any of that until 2020.
Thank you. So they're the only questions that I ask.
Just on this, the persons who communicated with you in this email, they are your fellow employees of Fujitsu?
Well, they're more senior than me.
More senior,
yes.
but Fujitsu people.
Yes.
So the explanation to you came from
Fujitsu.
Your own employers, in effect?
Yeah, I'm just checking that. As far as, yes, all those people there, I think, were Fujitsu people.
Right. Did you ever have any direct reason from Post Office employees as to why you were going to not be a prosecution witness anymore?
Not that I can recall.
Right, fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. So they're the questions that I ask. I think we're going to start with call participants tomorrow at 9:45.
All right. That's it for the day.